In an assembly of phantasms, such as I have painted, it may well be supposed that no ordinary appearance could have excited such sensation. And in truth, the masquerade license of the night was nearly unlimited. But the figure in question had an out-Herodiad Herod, and gone beyond the bounds of even the prince's indefinite decorum. There were chords in the hearts of the most reckless which cannot be touched without emotion, and even the utterly lost, to whom life and death were equally jests. There were matters of which no jest can be made. The whole company, indeed, was seemingly now deeply to feel that the costume and bearing of the stranger neither wit nor propriety existed. The figure was tall and gaunt, enshrouded from head to foot in habiliments of the grave. The mask which concealed the visage was only so nearly to resemble the countenance of a stiffened corpse, that the closest scrutiny must have had difficulty in detecting the cheat. And yet all this might have been endured, if not approved by the mad revelers around. But the murmur had gone so far as to assume the type of Red Death. His vesture was dabbled in blood, and his broad brow, and all the features of his face were besprinkled with the scarlet horror. When the eyes of Prince Prospero fell upon this spectral image, which with a slow and solemn movement, as if more fully to sustain its role, stalked to and fro among the waltzers, he was seen to be convulsed, in the first moment with a strong shudder either of terror or distaste, but in the next his brow reddened with rage. "Who dares," he demanded hoarsely of the courtiers who stood near him, "who dares insult us with his blasphemous mockery? Seize him and unmask him, that we may know whom we have to hang at sunrise from the battlements." It was in the eastern, a blue room, in which stood the Prince Prospero, as he uttered these words. They rang throughout the 7 rooms loudly and clearly, for the prince was a bold and robust man, and the music had become hushed at the waving of his hand. It was in the blue room where stood the prince, with a group of pale courtiers by his side. At first he spoke. There was a light rushing movement of this group in the direction of the intruder, who at the moment was also near at hand, and now, with a deliberate and stately step, made closer approach to the speaker. But from a certain nameless awe, in which the mad assumption of the murmur had inspired the whole party, there found none who would put forth hand to seize him, so that unimpeded he passed within a yard of the prince's person, and while the vast assembly, as if one impulse, shrank from the centers of the room to the walls, he made his way uninterruptedly, but with the same solemn and measured step which distinguished him from the first, through the blue chamber to the purple, through the purple to the green, through the green to the orange, and through this again to the white, and even thence to the violet, ere a decided moment had come to make him arrest him. It was then, however, that the Prince Prospero, maddening with rage and shame of his own momentary cowardice, rushed hurriedly through the 6 chambers, while none followed him on account of the deadly terror that had seized upon all. He bore aloft a drawn dagger, and approached in rapid impetuosity to within 3 or 4 feet of the retreating figure, when the latter, having attained the extremity of the velvet apartment, turned suddenly and confronted his pursuer. There was a sharp cry, and the dagger dropped gleamingly upon the sable carpet, upon which instantly afterwards fell prostrate in death the Prince Prospero. And then, summoning wild courage or despair, a throng of revelers at once threw themselves into the black apartment, and seizing the murmur, whose tall figure stood erect and motionless within the shadow of the ebony clock, grasped in unutterable horror at finding the grave cerements and corpse-like mask, which they handled with so violent a rudeness, untinted by any tangible form. And now was acknowledged the presence of the Red Death. He had come like a thief in the night, and one by one dropped the revelers in the broad, bejeweled halls of their revel, and died each in the despairing posture of his fall. And the life of the ebony clock went out at that the last of the gay, and the flames of the tripods expired, and darkness and decay and the Red Death held illimitable dominion over all.